Hi guys, welcome to the segmented worms video. We are specifically going to focus on the earthworm. We're going to do that for a couple of reasons. First of all, the earthworm is probably the most common of the segmented worms that we come in contact with here. And also, we know that at the end of this chapter, we'll be able to do a dissection of an actual preserved earthworm. So here we go. First of all, we have a phylum. So remember, we've got kingdom and we're working with Animalia now, and we are working with phylum Annelida. The reason that that we call them annelids is because they belong to this category, which specifically have segments on them. We're also going to be talking about in class some flatworms that don't have the segmented or divided up bodies into segments, but these all have this in common. So these types of creatures are going to be your earthworms, as we said. Some other examples of annelids are going to be, in addition to earthworms, sandworms, ragworms, leeches. You might have heard of leeches before. They used to be used in medicine. The belief was that they would attach to the skin and they would suck the blood out, and the idea was that they were sucking out the bad blood. We've since learned that that may not be entirely accurate, right? But you might have heard of them used for that purpose. So, segmented worms have an epidermis. We have an epidermis as well. It's the outer layer of our skin. We'll talk about that in the spring. But annelids actually have an epidermis over their entire body. So this is a diagram of the parts of an earthworm specifically, and you can see the outer skin portion. If you've ever touched an earthworm or just even observed one, you've seen the outer portion, the epidermis. The epidermis is extremely important to the earthworm, not only for just protecting its insides, but that's also how it's going to get its oxygen. An earthworm has pores all throughout its body. You can kind of see. We'll talk about, when we do our dissection, we'll talk about the different parts of the skin, and we'll look at these little hair-like structures. We'll talk about what those are and what they do, just to let you know they're called setae, and we'll be able to feel those when we dissect our worm. But all around there, and even connected to that, they have these pores. What happens is oxygen actually enters into the earthworm's body through the pores in its skin. Because of that, the skin has to be kept moist. If you've ever been out on a hot summer day and you've seen all the little earthworms dried up on the sidewalk, what happened is they've dried out. They have to stay moist. If it's too hot, too dry, then that's not good for them, of course. The best thing to do, of course, is if you see an earthworm and he's struggling to get across the hot sidewalk, is to pick him up and put him in the grass. Don't throw him in a pond, because then he'd get too much water and he might drown. So we don't want that either. Earthworms move by using the setae that I mentioned to you, the little, let's see here if you can see it, and if I can get to the right spot. It's kind of diagrammed here. These are the setae, but you can see the little hair-like structures that are all along the bottom there of our earthworm picture. They move using their muscles and those setae. It kind of helps to grip and move them along. Earthworms also do have a nervous system, just like we do. Theirs is much more simple than ours is. The earthworm does have a nerve cord that is a bundle of the nerve tissue, and it actually runs all along the worm. We will again see that when we open one up. They do also have a lot of nerve sensors that are able to sense the outside stimulus. That is very apparent whenever you are around an earthworm. If you touch one, they kind of freak out a little bit, don't they? They kind of jump around like crazy. So they're very sensitive. The nerves do pick up on any kind of outside touch, outside stimulus that might happen. Earthworms' digestive systems, they have an interesting diet. Most of us are probably aware that earthworms live in the dirt primarily, and they're also going to actually be eating the soil. So what they're doing, they actually do just kind of eat through as they work through the soil, and what happens is they're actually able to digest the organic material. So think back, what does organic mean? We don't mean, remember, that we're shopping at the grocery store and we're buying an organic apple or something like that. We mean anything that's alive. So they're going to get out the organic, the living material from the soil, and everything that is not living, everything that is therefore not digestible by the worm, is going to pass through the back of the worm. earthworm. So it's going to go back into the soil, and believe it or not, that is great for the soil. So if you have a garden, if you have anything like that and you've got earthworms that can work through the soil, that's going to be really, really great for your soil. So the last thing that I want to mention to you, I think you'll find really interesting, is the circulatory system for the worm. We have a circulatory system as well that's going to move the blood through our system. We have our heart, we have our arteries, veins, and so on. Instead of having just one heart, let's see here if we can see it on here. We might not be able to. I'm not seeing it right off the bat, but as we open up our worm, we're going to look and we're going to, oh, I see it. You're going to see these little bands that go across. And I know on my picture it's kind of hard to tell the difference between, but these darker 5 lines right here are actually 5 sets of aortic arches. So these function like the heart of the earthworm. So instead of having just one heart, they have 5 of these arches. They also have a closed circulatory system. The blood does not leave the blood vessels. It's not traveling to the other organs or anything like that. So now it's time for our questions. Make sure that you answer these 3 questions on a sheet of notebook paper and that you have it ready for class on the day that this is due. First of all, I want you to give me 2 examples of annelids. So 2 specific organisms that we mentioned at the beginning of the video. The second question, how do earthworms get their oxygen? Remember, they don't breathe in and out like we do. So how do they get oxygen? And the third question, how many sets of aortic arches does an earthworm have? All right, don't be afraid to go back and replay this video to look for the questions. Don't be afraid to replay this as you prepare for the test as we get ready for that.